Using smooth scrolling and scroll animations can turn your regular old boring website into something actually pretty impressive. And today I'm going to show you how using Lennis in Next.js. Let's get right into it. Alright, so here I just have a plain Next.js app. So I just did npx create next app at latest and came in here and removed all the boilerplate code. So now I just have a plain layout, a very plain page with just some sections 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then in my global.css, I just have very basic styles, which you can see here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the Lennis docs here on GitHub. And you can do this two different ways. You can either do an npm install of Lennis, or you can use the script tag, which I am going to use the script tag. I normally use npm, but I'm going to use the CDN link just for this example. So we're going to copy that and bring it in here. And something with Next.js is with scripts, you can use the native HTML script, but it's not optimized and it could interfere with some of the loading of your other components. So what you should do is use the Next.js script. So you just do capital S script, and then here we have next script. And we're going to do strategy equals before interactive here. So this way we're going to have this script and it's going to load before we get all of the hydration and all of the interactivity. So the next step is we want to make a smooth scrolling provider using Lennis here. So what I'll do is I'll just make a new folder here. We'll call it providers, and we will do scroll provider.js. So in here we're going to do just a normal React functional component. And on the top, we're going to declare use client, and we're going to start the imports here. So we want use effect, we want use ref, we want use context, and also create context. So first, we're going to create the context. So we'll go scroll context equals create context. Then we're going to make the use scroll context hook. Const. And that is going to be equal to an anonymous function use context of our scroll context above here. So this is going to make it so that in any component we can call use scroll context and get the Lennis reference. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up the Lennis ref, use ref here, and then use effect. And in our use effect, we're going to actually mount the scroller. My mistake, I actually want to use state, not use ref. That was my bad. So we're going to do const lennis set lennis, the use state of null. Then we're going to set another one to be the raf state. Set raf, request animation frame. This is what Lennis is going to run on. This is what makes it smooth. And so the first thing we're going to do is do const, I'll do lennis ref here is equal to new lennis, and we're going to get this. This is going to come from the CDN. So it's going to give us a warning here, but it is going to work. Then we want let rf. That is going to be the request animation frame. And here we're going to do function raf with time. We're going to do lennis ref of time, and then request animation frame of raf here. We're going to do rf is equal to request animation frame of raf here, and we're going to set raf as rf, and also set lennis as lennis ref. Then in our return, we'll do an anonymous function here. And if lennis ref we want to cancel animation frame of raf state, and then we also want to lennis ref dot destroy. So in this component unmounts, we want to destroy all, we want to cancel the animation frame, and we want to destroy the smooth scroller. So down here now, we're going to actually create the provider wrapper. So we're going to go scroll context dot provider, and then value lennis ref. And we're not actually going to extract this value in the examples here, but for if you ever need it, if you ever need the reference to this lennis object here, or this lennis class, I should say, that is where you're going to put it. You're going to do value equals lennis ref. And that is going to be all for the scroll provider here. So now we're going to go into layout, and we're just going to do scroll provider and wrap the children in the scroll provider. And for those of you that use Next.js regularly, you might be wondering, well, this is a client component, obviously, so won't all the children be client components? So that's actually an interesting thing about Next.js, is that you can nest server components inside of client components. So you can wrap all of the children of a layout in a provider or in a client component, but all the children can still be server components. So all of these here, this whole thing here, is all a server component. So what I'm going to do now is do npm run dev, and we're going to check out the page here. And we have an error, and that is because I called the wrong variable. We want that. Lennis. Alright, we should be good there. Another thing I forgot. You obviously need to put children here and children here. Okay, now as you can see, we have smooth scrolling. I'm using my mouse, where normally if we go to the GitHub here, it's very jerky, and that's fine for a lot of websites. But if you really want a website that is going to turn heads, smooth scrolling is almost necessary, because I don't know the percentage of people that use the laptop touchpad scrolling, but I feel like a good majority of people are using mice, and you can't forget about them. So we're going to make it so that everybody gets the smooth scrolling experience, those who use the touchpad and those who use mice. So now what we're going to do is we're actually going to create the animation. So I'm going to go over two examples, and so what we're going to do is I'm just going to create a component here, and I'm going to do smooth section.jsx. Do RFC, ragged functional component, and this is going to be a client component. So we're going to mark it as use client, because we need to use effect. And if we are using use effect or use layout effect, use state, any of those, we need to mark it as a client component because it's interactive. So I'm just going to take a section here. I'll just go section 2, and we're going to make that here. And what I'm also going to do is I'm going to import the next image component. I'm going to do source equals, so we just have slash images. Alt can just be blank. We want fill, and we want sizes to be 100 VW. So we can import this in, smooth section, refresh, and now we have this image here instead of the aquamarine section. And so the desired effect I'm looking for here is actually, I have on a recent project for Symmetry Sauna, on their cold plunge page, we had a section that was just a giant video that covered the entire screen, and it looked great. It was a great video, but as I was working on it, I thought that it could use something else, because in this site we are using Lennis, so I have the smooth scroll component, so I already have half the battle won there. So what I did was just used a clip path animation, so as you scroll, it just clips, and it's not anything breathtaking, but it's just a nice touch overall. Adds some aura to the website. So we're going to be doing something like that, and then another parallax effect. So to start with the clip path effect, so the first thing we need to set up is the scroll handler. So I'm going to do in the smooth section here is I'm going to make a function scroll handler. I'm going to do window.add event listener scroll handler. And you also might be wondering, why am I using window.add event listener when I could just use the scroll context scroll listener? Because there is a built-in scroll listener in lennis right here, lennis.onScroll. And the reason I do that is because if for some reason there is an issue with the smooth scroller, then we can always fall back to the window. And it's also easier to remove event listeners with React, because if I do lennis.onScroll here, there's actually no way to destroy that listener. So if I navigate to a different page, and this smooth section, this listener, if I put the lennis one here, it will still be running. And I see that as a huge problem. So what we want to do is we want to clean up the listener on the return. So we're going to do window.remove event listener scroll, scroll, and then scroll handler. So this is going to clean up all of the listeners. So in the instance of symmetry, if I don't use the window here and remove the event listener on dismount, then it is going to be listening for this reference here, this image reference on other pages, and that's going to cause errors, and then we're going to have big problems. So that's why I use the window. It might be wrong, it might be right. You guys can correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. So another thing we're going to do is we're going to do a image ref equals use ref from React. Ref equals image ref. And in the use effect, we're also going to do if image ref.current equals null, return. So we're not going to do any of this here if it's null. So I'm going to also set up my clip factor, and this is just going to be the amount of clipping that I'm going to be doing. So if I go in here and I do a clip path here, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be thinking about the progress from when it reaches the bottom here to when it goes to exit. So that's going to be a value between 0 and 1. And in this instance, I want to do the progress times my clip factor. So if I'm here, I want it to be 0. And when I'm here, I want it to be my progress, which is 1 times my clip factor. And in this instance, it would be 10. So I would be insetting each corner by 10%. So I'd be going 10, 10, and then so on. And also, I'm going to do a let progress equals 0. And now in the scroll handler, we're going to conditionally increase the progress and change the styling of the image ref. So here I'm going to do image ref.current.get bounding client rect dot bottom is greater than 0. So this is essentially if it is, so the only time it'll be less than 0 is if it goes past here. So if it's below here, then we want to trigger the progress. And then also we want to do and image ref.current.get bounding client rect dot top is less than window.inner height. And I also want a cleanup here, else if the bottom here is less than 0. So if it's less than 0, I want progress to equal 1. I want it to have the finished animation and make sure it's forced, because there are instances, which I'll show you soon, that if you're scrolling fast, the final value when it exits this conditional here is not as close to 1 as you'd like it. So when you come back up into the animation, it looks a little bit jerky. So now in here, we are going to actually set the progress. And we're going to set it equal to 1 minus the imageref.current.getBoundingClientRect.bottom divided by window.innerHeight plus imageref.current.getBoundingClientRect.height. And there is our progress here. And I will also log the progress outside here. So we'll save there, refresh, and now we can see that we have the progress goes from 0 or very close to it to 1. And it snaps at 1 by the time I leave. So I can see if I can replicate it here. If you scroll very fast, your ending value, okay, in this instance, so scrolled really fast and the ending value was 0.96, which you might think, oh, that's basically 1. Well, when you come back, you would be surprised to see that it's a lot less close than you would think. So just to make sure, we snap it to 1 afterwards. That way, when we scroll back up, it's a smooth entry. Now, when it comes to scroll animations based on the position of the element within the window, this is essentially the boilerplate I use every time. This big chunk up here, this is essentially the logic that is used every single time, and then I just tweak it for how I want it. In this case, we're going to use clip path. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do const string is equal to, and this is going to be the clip path style value. So we're going to go polygon. This is going to be a long string, so bear with me. All right, hello, it is me from the future. Past me did not know that inset existed, apparently. I don't know why I did not know that of the time of the recording, which is 5 minutes ago. But you can just do this instead. Do clip factor times progress percent or VW, whichever one you want. Do that instead. Good luck. So we're going to do imageref.current.style.clip clip path is equal to st. And so if all went right, we're going to see something cool here. So I'll refresh. Perfect. Exactly as intended, I believe. Yes. So nothing crazy, but definitely pretty neat. And you can obviously expound upon this in many ways, because now that you have the initial logic, which is this right here, this just chunk, you can really do whatever you want. So another thing that we can do here is we can do a parallax effect. So second example here. So here I'm going to copy in this parallax function that I use often, which this is a globally used function, so I'm looping through every image, but in this case we're just going to use the one image. So we're going to get rid of that for loop there, and we're going to change images of I to just imageref.current. So we'll copy that. Okay, there we go. So now we have this chunk here, which this chunk is going to go into the scroll handler. We're going to get rid of all this, or we're just going to comment it out, and we're going to put in this parallax effect here. So now we have the image ref from before, and then we have divider, parallax intensity, and scale, and you can adjust these as you want. And so what I do is, if it's on mobile, I get rid of the parallax. Otherwise, I use it. Which divider here is just an extra value, just in case there is some sort of, you want to slow it down or whatever it may be. But I actually don't have divider in here. All right. Oh, yes, I do. But that's just an extra parameter if you want to adjust. So now if we save here, if all went right, we should have a parallax effect. I forgot one thing. We need to go in here and we need to do overflow hidden. So that is a prerequisite that I forgot to mention of this parallax effect is it has to have a container that has overflow hidden and position relative if you're using Next.js images. So if we refresh here, now we don't see it, but now we get that parallax effect. How cool is that? Much nicer than just a flat image. And I use this sort of engine a lot of the times. And it seems pretty performant. I'm not sure how optimized it is. I'll preface this chunk with that I'm not sure how optimal this is. Actually, we can get rid of this because this is the instantiation, so we don't need to call that. We just need this here. All right, that's all I have for today. If you have any suggestions, you guys, please leave a comment down below. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next one.